Right, I'm Stan Corrigan. I was in prison in Long Kesh, Crumlin Road in Long Kesh from February 1975 till I was released out of Long Kesh on April the 10th, 1981, which incidentally was the day of the declaration of Bobby Sands' election result.
I'm John McNally from Eskra. I was arrested on the 3rd of February 1975 and released on the 5th of February 1981. Served 6 years out of 12, between 9 months on remand in the Crumlin Road and the rest of the period of time in the cages of Long Kesh.
It was 1975, there was a fairly intense armed struggle going on, and in Tyrone was no exception. It was probably one of the forefront areas of the struggle. We were arrested at a farmhouse at about, half 7, 8 o'clock, John?
Yeah.
In the evening by, I don't even know what regiment it was of the British Army. There was 6 of us arrested at the time, and we were taken to Omagh police station. Omagh police station at that time was a fairly notorious place for beatings and thumpings and torture. And I tell you, going in the road in the van that brought us in, we were beginning to think of how we were going to get through the next 3 or 4 days.
At the age of 19, I was the youngest arrested that night, and I had no idea what was in front of me. No idea. We were frog marched out of a van and beat with batons into the police station, which was on the old Gorton Road, and just flung into a cell. Again at 19, not knowing what my rights was or what they weren't right. The only thing that I did know was what Father Fall had been saying all along: don't sign anything. And there was no way that anything was going to be signed or false admissions made.
I say we went into the Crumlin Road. A week later, actually, I think it was Monday night, we were arrested. We were charged on the 6th of February. We were helicoptered to the Crumlin Road. A week later, on the Monday, a ceasefire was called, and it was a pretty extended ceasefire at the time. It went all through that summer. There was very few new prisoners coming in throughout the period of time, so the numbers weren't as big as normal in the Crumlin Road. And when we went in, it was just after a few months previous to this. They had the burning of Long Kesh and the barricading and the rioting, I suppose, in the Crumlin Road. So it was a very rigorous and strict regime in the Crumlin Road at the time. You know, you were locked up and you were let out. There was a lot of searches went on where the British Army, you would have been locked up, and the screws from the British Army came in and you were taken out cell by cell, and your cell was wrecked by the time you came back down. Because probably of the ceasefire at the time, our trial came up relatively quickly because there was people that had been waiting 2 years on their trial. Our trial came up in about September, Joe.
September, 9 months.
It was pretty straightforward at the time. The policy was in place that we didn't recognise the courts, simply because they were British courts, and plus the weight of evidence, not the weight of evidence, but the concoction of evidence against us. And you know, I often thought about it afterwards. If you had it contested in these terms, your conviction and trial, you know, they took us all in. There had been a car with explosives in it found at the farmyard where we were arrested, but we were brought in and we were just lined up, and swabs taken of us one after the other. There was no quarantine in between where one of the police officers would have swabbed us. He would have been straight to the next man. So there was obviously a contamination. We didn't know enough at the time to contest that. We didn't contest it. It was just a conveyor belt type thing where they threw up the evidence. We didn't contest it. There was a fair amount of lies told at it, and we were sentenced. We were all sentenced to, I think it was, we all got 12 years each at it. There was a guy with us, John McNally, who's since dead. Because it was on his property we were arrested. There was a rifle supposedly found in one of the sheds. He got an additional 3 years for that, and they give it to him consecutive. Now he was a guy that was actually a lot older than us at the time. John was 19, I was 23. I'd say John McCarroll was about 40 and had been suffering from stomach cancer, but it was just vindictiveness that they actually added on 3 years onto his sentence.
Then we moved from the Crum down until cage 23. That was the first place we went.
That's right. It was like a big
That was
open-
where all the prisoners were moved out. What they burned in 74, they moved them into temporary accommodation down in cage 23. And it was just like a shambles.
It was
There
like
were
a
bunks, three on top of other.
like a hay barn.
And water running through the roofs, and it was serious. Cormackship was good, as being new men were all laid out for a bit of crack for new guys, and the crack was good. The crack was good.
The other Throne men made us very welcome.
Yeah,
like, you know,
that's
very
right.
comrade-
Yeah,
very
even they
comrade-
all made us very welcome because we knew we were all Republicans and we were there for the same reason. I would say about a week or two later, we were moved up into a refurbished cage called Cage 9, where we spent the next, I think, about 3 or 4 years in that
Yeah.
particular cage. And again, the comradeship was excellent. Everybody pulled together. Anybody that wouldn't have got a food parcel would have been taken under the wing of other lads that was getting food, often food parcels.
There was a system in
Yeah,
there where
co-ops.
co-ops and what one of the staff in there was a quartermaster, and he would have a dump, as we called it, for food, extra food, and he'd give it out to people coming
Yeah.
in and things like that. And the Green Cross sent in clothes, and you got clothes and boots, and all well looked after and well organised both inside and outside.
Well, when you got up in the morning, there was as well as a camp OC or a cage OC, there was a hut OC, the man that was in charge of each hut. And at a certain time, which was probably around 8 o'clock, he went round waking everybody.
Eerie.
And everybody had 10 or 15 minutes to get out. And to get out to the showers and get washed. And everybody made up a bed pack. Same as any army.
Aye.
You made up a bed pack, you just didn't leave your bread. You spread your all up in a bed pack, and then you got your breakfast. And maybe 2 or 3 mornings a week then there would be a drill for a couple of hours. Or not a couple of hours, maybe an hour or half an hour.
Aye.
And then a couple of days a week you could be out on the all-weather pitch for football, soccer or Gaelic.
Some boys went out for a run round.
Some boys went for a run round that. See, we had the whole camp to ourselves after that check in the morning. And a lot of ones then spent time in the recreation room doing either gym or handicraft.
Handicrafts, there's a fair amount of that went on. There was 6 cages, cage 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14 of Republican prisoners. Normally 13 and 14 was for short-term prisoners or prisoners due for release. I think cage 9 came to be known as the countrymen's cage or
Yeah.
the Throne men's cage, We run our own football, organise our own football matches together. Some cages played the other cages and there's some great crack in them. The Belfast boys were in 11 and they always loved to get beaten, the countrymen, but it didn't always happen. It led to some fairly good contested games,
The size of the cage was 70 metres by 70 metres. And there was 4 huts in it. Three for accommodation and 1 for recreation. There was also the likes of a study, transline as we called it, and a shower block. Other than the screws coming in at 7 o'clock in the morning and going round with a flash lamp and getting a head count, the screws never came into that compound unless for a raid, which was usually weekly, till 8 o'clock that night, when all the prisoners lined up till our own TO and fell into line and walked into each hut, and 2 screws stood at the entrance of each hut and counted the heads going in. And as long as they got 74 heads, I think it was, someone like that there, they were happy enough. And then we had the night to ourselves. We had a TV within that hut, and we had a Bruco boiler, and there's toilets in it, and we could have stayed up till 7 o'clock the next morning if I had wanted to do it, like. But the lights went out at maybe 11 or half 11, and people was in wee small cubicles, just blockboard. There was no roof on them or nothing, so you had a wee bit of privacy, and you could have a small light in there if you wanted to read a book or whatever you wanted to do.
Some lads got together and chatted away. But there was in the command structure, there was an OC commanding officer or officer in command of each cage, and there was an adjutant, and there was a training
Quartermaster.
officer, quartermaster for food and clothes, there was a training officer for just for drilling and that. I was OC of Cage 9 and responsible for the discipline and for communication with the screws. I would have went out every morning to meet the governor, and if someone had an issue with if there was something he wanted a visit changed, every week you had to send out an invitation to your people who was coming down the following week. Well, if John had sent out a visiting permit to his mother and father, and his father couldn't make it, or he wanted to bring an aunt up and wanted to change that, he would let me know. If there was somebody getting in some clothes, you had to get a permit for that. I would have brought things like that out to the governor. If there was a dispute over food or certain things, you would go out and you discuss that with the governor. Your whole command structure was totally accepted by the prison administration. And if say one of the prisoners, their parents died, or their brother died, or there was a death, the one of the principal officers, as they call them, the screws, would have come up, asked me to come out and meet them, or any of the OCs, the cages, would have told you the situation, and then the OC would have went in and spoke. There was no communication one-on-one between a screw and a prisoner, individual prisoner. It was all through a command structure. The screws recognised that and it actually made life easier for them, because all they had was 2 screws out on the gate. Okay, you say, why didn't you get out? Well, there was guys in watchtowers, armed watchtowers, there was high walls, there was barbed wire and that, so there was a few attempts, alright, so a few successes, but from a command structure point of view and a recognition by the administration, that was all there, And even on occasions, some of the screws would have said to me, I think the wrong boys are in behind the wire, because they had a lot of complaints about fellow screws stealing from them or stealing stuff down in the locker rooms and that, We had what the H Block prisoners were demanding: our own clothes, association, visits once a week, and food parcels and things like that. We had that. This was something the Brits had given us, and anyone standing before March 1976 was allocated that as a right.
Up at Christmas, the boys was always brewing a bit of potting, and fair play to them, they had maybe 4 or 5 gallon of it, and they would mix all into a Bruco boiler to give everybody the equal strength and the equal measurements. But the screws hit it with a flash raid one morning.
Christmas Eve,
and the whole gear was out.
Taken out of the hiding place.
And they realised then we were going to tip it down the toilet, or we were going to try and save it. So the plan was to save it. So they usually would have let you take the Bruco boiler out to the recreation room to make tea. So the boys put the potting into the Bruco boiler and poured a drop of hot water around the top of the lid and carried it out. That was half of the problem. The biggest problem was getting it back in again. So the screws had searched and got nothing. So they realised that it was still somewhere else. And as we were talking there, that there was a quartermaster dealing with supplies in the cage. And there was also a paper bag full of cigarettes sent in by the Green Cross or Tyrone PDF for anybody that was short. And I think yourself was in the middle of it, Stan, as the decoy.
Aye.
So
it
ended up anyway.
That's right.
It ended up anyway that the plan was create a diversion and try and walk past them with the Bruco boiler again. So Marty Hill, a Belfast man from the New Lodge, a great lad he is, was carrying this, and he was in the plan to not let them search these cigarettes. It's only a bag full of cigarettes, which was legal enough as far as they were concerned. But anyway, Marty wouldn't let them.
Clothes as well. With the bag of clothes, and the bag of cigarettes came next with this plan. I don't know who it was went with the bag of clothes, you see, and they went to search it. And the plan with your man, he just tipped the bag up. There you are, he said. There's only clothes of it. And I drew my boot and scattered it. And at that,
they rolled down through the clothes searching, thinking the gear was in it.
At that, John and a couple of other boys came by, carrying the Burko boiler and the bag of cigarettes and walked on in.
Never lost a thing.
So it was a game of cat and mouse, outwitting each other, like, you know.
And half of the lads wouldn't have knew what was going on, and everybody went in back after the search thinking all was lost. And the boys said, did you lost it? And we said, no, we didn't. Well, there was a cheer, you would have heard it at them, wouldn't you?
On the cold winds of night you will find me. Oh, wish I was back home in Derry. Oh, and I wish I was back home in Derry.
But you didn't have time to waste, you know. You used your time as best you could. And whether that's, John says, handicraft, playing football, doing a bit of training, learning a bit of Irish, you know, sitting down and having discussions with some of your comrades, you know, you'd form wee groups and you'd maybe have a discussion, and then you might get together to crack a bit of football, and of course, like the old soccer, their, you know, interest in your county teams used to be a great crack, and you'd have bets, you know, you had Mars bars, that was the currency, you know, you might have Mars bars, but there was one famous FA Cup final, Manchester United played Arsenal. I don't know if you remember it or not, and there was massive Mars bars because one half of the camp was Manchester United men, the other men were Arsenal. But Arsenal, I think, were 2-0 up, and sure, they were keeping the Manchester United men going. And then the next thing, Manchester United scored 2 goals, and they were into injury time. And just as Manchester United scored, sure, the whole slagging went on. The next thing, Arsenal came down and scored a goal. Sure, there was uproar. There was Mars bars, one lost, and particularly also the finals and things like that. Sure, deadly crack. Wow. Deadly crack, and then at All Ireland final day, it used to be great to see Kerry in the All Ireland final because we'd put the tricolour up on the cages and the screws would come in looking to remove this tricolour. Oh no, that's the Kerry flag, and you know, things like that. You'd be telling them that was able to bend the rules.
One time, fixing a roof, this would be a screw on a boiler suit, like doing trades, and Michael says, I'm going to try and get money of this boy. And he went out to the money and he says, you wouldn't lend me 2p, I'm drawing a wee circle in here and I need 2p, and I screwed through him out 2p. And the next thing he come back, no, it's too wee, he says, I'd need a 10p. Of course, he threw him down 10p. No, he says, you wouldn't have a 50p on you. The screw threw him down 50p, but Michael never come back to him.
I know a trick that is, John. In particular, now one prisoner, Martin Hurston spent, and it isn't publicised a lot, Martin Hurston spent a year in Cage 9 on remand, and this is a contradiction in itself. While them men were charged, there was about 4 of them charged together, Martin Hurston, Kevin O'Brien, Peter Kane and Patrick O'Neill. The majority of their charges was related to before March 76. Yeah. They were allocated to the cages for remand. And when they pulled up outside the cages, did Martin Hurston jump out with them and went into the cage, you know? So they got him into the cage anyway, and at cage 13, Martin Donnelly, a Tyrone man, was OC at cage 13 at the time. And I remember him standing up. I was actually OC of the camp at the time. Him standing up to me to say, what are we going to do? There's a man in here, and they're looking him back out again. Drone man, Martin Hurston, well, I said, he's not going out, you know, send the governor up here. So the governor came up and they got into big discussions over it, and at the time it was sort of just at the start of the H blocks, and them not wanting to raise any racket among the boys in the cages. You know, I said, look, the man, you've left him off here, the guys that he's charged with are here, you know, he should be here too. So they decided to let him stay there. Now, whether it was to let things calm and we feared that they might come some evening try and take him out, we got him transferred up to our cage, up to cage 9. So we kept Hurston up there for between 9 months or a year up with us, you know. And like Hurston spent almost a year up in the cages on remand, you know.
So I ended up doing 6 years to the day from I was charged till I was released. I suppose the longest period would have been the last month. I would have thought, when you started thinking about getting out. I wasn't out, thank God, for any bereavements or anything like that. So I hadn't seen the main road for 6 years. Again, my father and cousin lifted me, and I suppose the cars was a bit better. I couldn't believe like the speed was something that I thought was, the M1 was serious, like, you know. And I got home and thought things had changed around home a bit too, you know, you just from what I'd seen before. Since that, I suppose, went down to Dublin in 81 to work, And the hunger strike and all was trying times. It was trying times. I attended, I think it was 8 of the 10 funerals. Big memories. Martin Hurston again, played football with him, ate of the same table as him, ate of the same pan as him. Real good friend and mate.
Yeah. But I remember a year before getting out, Johnny Logan won the Eurovision with What's Another Year. Remember that came out in April, and the week before I got out, Shakin' Stevens was number one with Ain't Gonna Need This House No More. I've no doubt the song I sung for the last week I was in jail was the boys were sick of it, you know. But I came out anyway. I remember that morning I walked around the cage. I walked around with Hugh Feeney, one of the Jerry Kelly's co-accused. I walked around with it and called my name. One off, they used to call it, Corrigan for release, and I kept on walking with Q and chatting another way while wind this screw in the gate up, because all he was concerned was getting me out and getting me marked off the book and off his hands. But I walked around all 10 minutes and out eventually the enemy came down, and I remember a couple of things about getting out. One screw came into me and read me out this rigmarole of stuff through your release papers, and he said I wasn't allowed to have a gun license. And I sort of sniggered a wee bit at him. I said, what do you find so funny? Well, I didn't have a license for the last gun. So he got me into the back of the van anyway and headed for the gate, and you go through 2 or 3 airlocks, they call them, one gate, close, open the other gate, the check who's in the van. But there was this particular screw, a bit of a nasty boy. It was really near the last gate, you know, and he opened the door and looked in and he said, "What's your number, son?" And I remember looking at him and saying, "I ain't got no number, and you ain't my father." And he banged the door, he nearly drove it in round me. And I come out and it was, what time was it now? Martin Hurston's posters were up and different boys. It was during the hunger strike had started, that's right. Bobby Sands' election had been the day before, and I was more concerned about, you know, was Bobby Sands going to get in? This was Friday the 10th of April. And was Bobby going to get in? And came home. The house was full and everybody was glad to see me, and my mother in particular, and I hadn't seen home for years. Like I'd been away on their own for a couple of years beforehand. And it was great, and like John said, it was amazing coming from a place that was all wire and concrete, and we live on a bit of a hill, and you could actually see your way out over into Tyrone, and I just stood there. I must have stood there for hours. I wouldn't go into the house, just looking at the scenery and out across. Came then and went for a walk up the road and into a neighbour's house and sat down, and the election result came in. Well, when I heard Bobby Sands got elected, it just couldn't believe it. It was just ecstatic, you know. But that was on Friday. I remember it well, and I remember Carrickmore was coming up the following Sunday. And I had never been to Carrickmore prior to this. Carrickmore commemoration had started in 71. I had been on the run from 72, 73, we were in jail. And I was looking forward to going to Carrickmore, and I was actually to read one of the statements at the Carrickmore Easter Sunday, to do something at it anyway. And during the week, but to do that night, the night I got out up in Monaghan, and it turned into a great night because it was celebrating. We nearly ended up celebrating Bobby Sands more, so it was a great night altogether. And on the Wednesday of the following week, we went to Dungannon, or went to Killisland. There was a protest outside the barracks for the hunger strikers. We ended up up the Ballagolly line with a protest there, and coming away from the event, myself and my brother and a couple of friends, we were surrounded, rammed almost by armed special branch men hauled out of the car. I actually thought they were going to shoot us, and I think one of those 2 girls in the vehicle we may have done, but we were pulled into the barracks, and we were charged with, I don't know what it was, blocking traffic or some charge anyway, and down to the Crumlin Road. So I got out on Friday and I was back in the Wednesday, and there was gone my appearance at Carrickmore, which I'd been looking forward to.